7 p.m. Oh, there. Well, we're live. So. Scheduled this thing wrong, and on top of that, I finally fixed my Wi-Fi, so it's been a great day to have like good Wi-Fi. All right, we are here. Sorry about that. I realized right before the cast that I had goofed on the day and time. My bad. But we are here. It is Thursday. We are the REALMigos, and we're back in action. I'm going to remove that logo there. Sorry, Kevin. It's right in your face.
Oh, no, I can move myself too.
No, you're good. You're good. All right, so let's get going. Jeremy Knights, your favorite REALMigos host. We are back in the building. Adam, thank you for joining. The eviction ban means nothing for Austin. Interesting. We'll talk about that. Just buy and hold, simple as that. Kind of getting tired of this on YouTube. Yeah, you know what? I agree with you. I agree 100%. That's why we're going to try to bring a level-headedness to this. So we are back. We're going to talk about the evictions. We're going to talk about starting September 1st, some new laws just passed that actually affect real estate, mainly HOAs. So we'll get into that. And then we'll just, we'll do our thing. We'll get to it. Gentlemen, what's the new news?
With what?
Yeah, you're talking about in life and business and what?
Oh, sorry. Let me reintroduce you. All right.
Yeah.
To the top, we have Kevin Mullet Man. Magic Mullet is in the building. Welcome back, Mullet Man. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Your favorite dinosaur D is here. So hello, DD. All right. And then the one-armed beret is here. Ian of Austin. Welcome back, my friend.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Yeah, he's got a pink cast on.
It's pink. It's gray. It's just the lighting in the room.
He karate chopped a baby, so there you go.
It's true.
Yeah.
Checks out.
What was the official story on this? Is a box of puppies on a freeway or something like that?
There were two buyers fighting over a property, and I had to come in there and break it up. And my arm was the sacrifice.
Yeah, he was hammering down a listing sign in a yard and had to use his fist, the straight rock fist. Is the eviction change just Texas or all of the U.S.? It is all of the U.S. So we'll get into that. Kevin, anything to add before we get crazy?
No, just was pulling up some other stuff earlier. I'm excited to talk about this eviction ban stuff early. I think clearing the air for people. Listen, this is the one place on the interwebs that we're not going to sensationalize stuff. We're going to tell it exactly how it is. So you can go watch all the sensational fear mongers, all their channels, and then you can come to us for what it really means.
Yeah, man. All right, let me make sure I got this. Boom, we're there. All right, so let's talk about what happened. That's not it. So the eviction moratorium that and I'm sure everybody has heard this news. The eviction moratorium ban was lifted. The Supreme Court shot it down, and so basically it was the CDC's moratorium has been shot down. So which means that people are now facing eviction. So there's a lot of news about this that's happening. A lot of people are really worried about it. I mean, here's the stats of people facing eviction right now. You have 16% of people. What was that?
Yeah, the percent of renters. This is good.
Yeah, so percent of all renters that are facing eviction, 16% in Louisiana, 15% in North Carolina. Those are huge numbers. West Virginia. Let's go down to what matters most, though, is Texas is 6.2%. So that means 93.8% of renters are not facing eviction, but that's in Texas. But this could, have pretty big ramifications on the market in general, and we'll get into that. But first of all, Kevin and Ian, what are your thoughts on this getting struck down?
Ian, you want to go first?
I'll let you go first, and I'll.
Okay. So, obviously, I think there's good and bads. Let's not pick this apart too much up front, because it was put in place for a very good reason. Last summer, people were not allowed to really work. And I know a lot of people that were affected by this. I'm sure you do too. I mean, we were affected by it. I was a little fearful when this first happened. I was like, well, what's this going to mean for our jobs going into the winter or the summer and fall? And, but there are people that I know, like in the service industry, for example, like that was like, dire straits. Like, listen, I make money, I spend the money immediately. I need this money to pay for rent. What am I going to do going forward? So I think it was actually really valuable, but there's a lot of momentum behind that, right? So there was, it was there for a good reason. There's momentum behind it. We all kind of had buy-in that the government stimulus packages were going to help out with all that. Okay. Well, here we are. I mean, how long has it been now? Like,
oh geez. I mean, since really like
16, like
6, yeah. A year and a half,
17 months, maybe 17 months, maybe 16 months since they put the ban in, or the ban of the
eviction ban. Well, and like you hear so many anecdotal stories, and then you hear stories. In fact, I'm going to pull up a article here about Travis County, and it's really interesting because you have, on one hand, you have landlords who are just regular people like you and I that own rental properties and have not had stable rents come in. And then you have, on the other hand, you do have people that, let's say they're, the single mom that has to send their kid to school, but their kid was homeschooled and they can't work. So there's all these different ways to look at this. And, I feel like we're in a time where people finger point pretty heavily, but, yes. There's two sides to this coin, and both sides have, things that have happened. So, Ian, I want to get your take on it as well.
I have a lot of curiosity about what I see in the comments going back and forth. Like, one of them is simply, who is the bad guy in the scenario in the minds of most people, right? Because you have the landlord that just needs to feed their family, but then you also have the renters that need to feed their family. And it becomes kind of a spiral of a conversation, but I have my thoughts, and I'm going to reserve them the conversation gets a little deeper.
Yeah. Dinosaur D says, how many weeks of rent are landlords potentially going to lose when evicting tenants, and then landlords buffer big enough to weigh the loss? I think really the thing is if people are up for eviction, they're people that haven't been paying for a while. There are a lot of those stories where people, one of the stories I read was pretty interesting. This guy ended up having to sell his rental that he'd owned for 20 something years because the girl who lived in the house stopped paying rent, but at the same time didn't lose her job. She just stopped paying rent and was never able to get. I mean, he was like, who's gonna pay me the $70,000 I lost over this time? 16 months or 18 months, whatever it was that she stopped paying. So, but then there's people that need it too. So, let's talk about what this means though for the overall market. So, let's say 6%. Right now, leases are tough, right? It's tough to come by leases. So if let's say 6% of these rents, 6% of these people get evicted, what does that mean for the real estate market? What does that mean for the rental market? And what does it mean for those people?
I don't know that it means much. Well, I mean, obviously for those people, it's just going to come down to them moving on to the next affordable option that they had, right?
Yes.
And we don't know what that's going to be, but that's going to be lesser quality or something farther away from their workplace, something you're going to have to make some compromises on. But there's always going to be options. Like people get evicted all the time. Surprisingly, I own low income housing, and for the years that I owned it, because I just sold the last one. So for 9 years, I owned low income housing, and I only had to evict people like a handful of times. I mean, we go through the process of eviction. Like a lot of times people wouldn't pay. Like, hey, we need to figure out what you're going to need to pay. And I would grace them as a landlord. Even then I'd be like, listen, you're 3 months behind on rent. I understand it can be overwhelming to get to this point. I need you to show me some grace, or I'm going to show you some grace here, but you need to step up to the plate for me. And so then I would do that. And this was in normal working times too. And then they would just be late on the next payment again. Like, listen, what do you want me to do? I'm extending as much grace as I can. But one of the things I thought was interesting, Jeremy, was, I saw this before we even talked about this. When we were talking about the institutions buying all the houses, right?
Yeah.
One of the articles I saw like a week ago where it was talking about that fund, that $6 billion fund purchasing all the homes here in the Sun Belt. And then I saw another one, by the way, that's going to be purchasing homes in the Sun Belt this week. They said these are the landlords that are actually more likely to evict you. The institutional investors are absolutely the ones, like, if you don't pay, they start that eviction process the day that they can.
Yeah.
So that's what you should be more concerned about, I think, from a renting standpoint.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think, it's kind of rough because you have a lot of, I own rental properties. And so, if somebody wasn't paying, I would probably be in the same position as you where it's like, hey, how do we get this to work? But then, 16 months of not, of me eating that. Now here's a challenge, right? And so it's like, at what point do you start the process? And look, let's say, okay, this is 6% of rentals. Let's say, taking the people out of this, let's say that, those 6% take their, sorry, Ian's doing stuff in the back and it's messing with me. But let's say that 6%, evicts those people. It's going to take time. It's not going to be easy, right? It's going to take, a couple, part of the problem is that there's not enough people even to do the evictions. And we'll get into some of the other problems that have been part of this because there's money on the table to help these people and it's not getting out to them. So we'll talk about that. But let's say 6% of these evict everybody. What do they do? Does that, and this is for Austin, right? Or for Texas. Do those 6%, do they put their homes on the market right away? Do they put them up for lease? What does that actually do for the rental market? Because right now the rental market is a challenge. I mean, I don't do too many rentals, but in fact, I should have brought on my friend Marcus, who does pretty much apartment rentals. He doesn't actually do like residential rentals, but it's going to take time for all of that to even hit the market. I think the speculation for so many people is, oh, all these people are going to put their homes on the market. Well, the reality is inventory is already very low. We're still at about a month of inventory. So let's say some of that does hit. It's going to be well-needed inventory. But let's think about this too. Rentals, I've had a lot of clients that have owned rentals. And when those rentals go to get on the market, it takes time to get them to look nice if you're going to sell them. And a lot of times they don't. So they're not going to, they might not sell for a lot to begin with. So Ian, you froze, man. Welcome back.
No idea what happened. I think I kicked my computer down there.
Good job.
Yeah, so mad about this topic. So mad about this topic. So any other final words? I'm going to talk about a few other things here, Ian, but any other insights on the moratorium being lifted or the ban being lifted?
So I didn't hear what you were talking about. I was trying to pull it up on my phone as I was restarting, but here's what I remember reading a little bit earlier in the day. 22 million, this is across the United States, not just Texas, mom and pop landlords. We're talking about non-institutional investors. 50% of them could go bankrupt if rent isn't paid and there was a set period of time. Let's say it's 6 months, right? Half of 22 million could go bankrupt. And that means now if you have an issue and the landlords don't have the money, well, now they're foreclosing on the property. Now 2 families are out instead of the one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to this question, but let me ask you, on investment properties, if you stopped during the Schmorona, were you able to take forbearance if you had it as an investment property?
Well, I do know that they did, just like they had eviction moratorium, you could apply for aid as a landlord.
Yes.
And I don't even know that was even really depleted ever.
Well, and that's exactly what I want to bring on here is that, and that was the next place we were going. Boom. All right. So in Travis County, I found this article. I don't know this Austin Monitor. I don't know much about them. So if they're like some crazy right or left publication, sorry. I found it.
That's a direction. I don't know which direction that is.
I don't know which way it goes, but I mean, I'm just saying I found this. But what they were talking about in this article is that it's like 11% of the actual funds that were allocated of the $45 billion has actually gone to either to homeowners or because there's 2 sides of this assistance. There is for, homeowners, but only 11% has actually gone out to people that need it. And part of the problem is why this hasn't gone out. Because I think that's the thing is everybody jumps to, well, why, people aren't getting this money, renters aren't getting this money. The emergency assistance program. Part of the problem is there's no body in place to actually, dedicate these funds. And so they had to build, like Travis County had to build this from scratch. The city of Austin had to build this from scratch. So while those funds were allocated, think about all these cities that didn't have really resources ready to go at this magnitude as well. So, in this article, if you want to read it, it's a good article. It's Austin Monitor. I can drop this article so you can read it in a little more detail, but it kind of followed somebody who ended up getting evicted and left and kicked out of their place. But, kind of went into what the struggles she found, because a lot of things that they say is like most people, let's say they have a language barrier, don't understand how to use websites, maybe, or didn't understand how to get access to be honest with you, I had no idea that there was even like funds available. So that just goes to show you that there's probably a lot of people out there that don't know that there's funds available as well.
Right.
Conspiracy theory, perhaps.
Well, how are you finding this information? The only reason we find this is because we're looking for it. We're actively seeking it, right? Nobody's out there passing out flyers saying, if you need help with rent.
And that's a great point. In this article, that's exactly what they said, that, there's nobody with outreach going into neighborhoods and saying, hey, if you're needing help, here's how you go onto this website, go in here. There's nobody actually, there's no community outreach for this.
They don't want to pay it out.
I mean, that's
that too. That's a whole insurance. Yeah.
I mean, I think that they just don't want to pay it out. Like, I'll tell you firsthand, I'm not just saying this. I actually did try. No, it just reminded me. I tried to apply for the landlord assistance in Illinois. So I had to go through the housing authority, which is in Chicago, which is so efficient, if you can imagine. I could not find anything besides just a blurb that it was available on the website. I made multiple calls to the housing authority in the state of Illinois, and I got zero response on landlord assistance in the state of Illinois. Zero. Never got a call back. Multiple calls from me. I never got anything. So I don't know. I mean, for me, it's just sucks because I'm with you guys. I think it's not clear that this is even still available, because they just say, hey, we're not going to evict you, but they don't say, hey, go to this website and fill this out if you want the money.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, you have a lot of people that kind of get fearful and they panic about the situation, but there is help, and just knowing that that's available is important. Again, like you said, that doesn't mean it's easy to obtain, but it's important to know that there are places to go.
Well, my big question is for Jeremy too. Like, Jeremy, do you think that if landlords we've been dealing with this, let's say for like the last 18 months, right? Let's just say that landlords have been. So that means potentially for 18 months, some landlords haven't been getting the income that they needed off this property. So I guess my question for the naysayers is, why haven't we already seen more negative repercussions from the landlord side if those people haven't been paying this whole time? Like, what would the end of this moratorium actually, why would that make a difference about new houses going on?
You know what's interesting about that? I wonder how many landlords were in a bind and said, we're just going to sell because the market's crazy right now.
You know, that's actually a good point, because I've noticed recently a fair amount of listings. I mean, I think this is where also we kind of have to bridge into real estate with this, but I've seen a fair amount of listings in the last, 4 or 5 months that I'm like, oh, I could buy this property. Man, that rent is really low. Yeah. But I know that nobody else can buy that property because it's like 8 months left on the rent. Right. Mm-hmm. So, listing agent will put it in a house. You can't even show it. There's no photos of it. The rent on it's like $1,600 a month, but they're trying to sell it for $500,000, which if you do the math, that doesn't make sense. And so I've seen quite a few of these and I go, what's the deal? Why are they putting these homes on the market? I mean, so it might make sense that some of these sellers weren't, I didn't look through the disclosures to find out whether or not the tenant was up on their mortgage, but that could be a reason why I've seen quite a few of these listings hit the market that nobody else can buy other than fellow investors.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, I mean, we know the market rates could probably bump it another $500, maybe even $1,000 for some of those houses. Do you think that's just going to work without having to put any more money into some of these places? Mm-hmm. It might, but then also dealing with it, getting the tenants to vacate. I could see it being a hassle.
Well, that's part of the thing. I mean, in order to do to evict somebody, you have to go through the court first, and then you have to get the constable out, or then you have to get the sheriff out to actually evict them. So the process isn't a super easy process. I've heard a lot of stories where people have paid the tenant to leave. There was, I actually sold a condo in North Austin, and as we were getting ready to take photos, literally the unit across from us, they were just like, these two guys were just ripping everything out of it, throwing everything in the dumpster. And I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, oh yeah, we had to pay the tenant like $2,000 to leave because they hadn't paid the rent in like 8 months or whatever. And they were just pretty much squatting. And he took his money and left. I'm like, whoa, I didn't even know people were doing that.
And you think about it from the tenant's perspective, they need to have money to go. If they weren't paying you rent, chances are they didn't have money to put down on a security deposit somewhere else. And so, that's an easy way to give them incentive. I had a situation. Did I ever tell you about this? I had a situation where someone bought a house, an investor bought a house that I was listing, and there was a remaining person living in the garage that would not leave. The investor called me and he's like, this person, did you know that they were still there? I was like, I had no idea. So we had to go through the process, figure out how to evict them and everything. And the police ended up telling us, an investor that I had go through this situation, she said, after you've served them, you have to change the locks.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they break in, then you can serve them and remove them from the premises. I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, so just points to your mentioned that it is a difficult process, even if it's not their property anymore, and you've served them properly.
Two things to note real quick. This doesn't apply to every state, by the way, right now. I think some of them, like New York, is carrying on until January, and I think some other states are doing them for a bit longer. But the only way that you, if I remember the numbers correctly, the only way that you qualified in the eviction moratorium was you had to make 75% or less of the median household income in order to get that assistance. So you couldn't just be in your house and decide, well, you know, I make $200,000 a year. I'm just not going to pay my $10,000 a month rent, right? That's not how this is happening. Legitimately, I think it does mostly just affects the lower dollar rentals.
Well, here's a good point too. Dinosaur D. I can't say the first word, but cases are on the rise despite growing vaccines. Yeah, and is there a chance eviction moratoriums make a comeback? Now, I think that's a great thing to think about too, because let's think about who put the moratorium in place, or who was holding this moratorium, and that was the CDC. Now, basically, if I remember this correctly, the Supreme Court basically said, all right, this isn't constitutional. If you want to continue to do this, it has to be, put in as a law. You actually have to have our government do their jobs and not kick the can to the CDC. They have no jurisdiction. So it's interesting to me that for all the people upset that, the moratorium has been lifted, like Kevin said, New York has theirs still, California still has theirs. But if Congress really wanted to do anything about this, they would be doing it. But where are they? Where's the calls for Congress to do this? I mean, I know people are upset, but more congressmen should be doing their jobs. I mean, maybe.
I mean, that's asking a lot, and that's, I think, also I think we look at I always mention the algebraic view versus the calculus view. Like, I'm sure there's a lot more behind the scenes reasons why they're doing this, or some people get better protection than others that have a higher vested interest. That would be my guess, is that, the ones that are benefiting the most from these programs are probably friends of the program, as you call it in the movie Blue Chips, the people that are, that generally benefit most from a legislature like this. So I'm not sure that it really negatively or positively impacts the normal everyday one of my clients that owns one rental house. I don't know that it affects our market that much, to be honest with you, too, because
that was another big point.
I don't do a lot of rentals, but I probably do more than normal average age of person.
6% on that list. We're pretty low.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at Texas, but I mean, as a market economy as a whole, I mean, Louisiana, let's say they start, mass evictions. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of people to be kicked out. I mean, granted, it's only 108,000 versus, if you look at, North Carolina, 272,000. I mean, that's a much larger amount. I think what's California? California was really high because they have
but what's
California and
517?
What's the median home price, the median rent, and the median household income in those states? Like, I don't know the answer to that, but I would.
This isn't a spreadsheet. Those stats aren't readily available.
You know who has those stats? Zillow, right?
Yeah.
Is that the place to get stats nowadays for videos?
And NAR.
Yeah. I would trust NAR over that Z1. Yes, interesting. I always love people that try to give me facts through Zillow, and I'm like, well, hold on a second. Let's look at the actual awesome Board of Realtors information that's like actual. Here's the one thing. Okay, if you're going to trust Zillow. So that guy that we're not going to say his name, but the one that keeps calling for the crash. One thing he keeps going to is he keeps pulling Zillow data.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. We're a non-disclosure state in Texas, and other states are non-disclosure states. So you're not getting full data from Zillow, or I mean, Redfin are probably a little bit better because they're actually brokerage. So whatever stats they're putting in, but the point is that the best place to actually get the data is right from the source, where the data is actually coming from. And so to say that Zillow is going to give you good information, it's like, okay, right. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
Can we answer LM's question? Here's a general.
The first one up. Yeah. Wrong one.
Yes,
The long pop. I don't know how to answer that.
On the fence of selling my Rhode Island, is that home in Rhode Island, right? Or rent it and refi with a small cash out for a down payment on an Austin area property now that the moratorium is over. Bought the house for 160, still owe, can sell for 350. And then later said, yeah, to become or not to become a landlord. Bought this home 9 years ago during crash and fully renovated it. Passive income sounds nice, but the hard decision to make. Advice from the Amigos is much appreciated. You know, it's going to vary by state. You know, I have rental properties as of right now, and luckily you also have to know who you're renting to. I've rented to mainly college professors, it seems like.
I think one of the questions is, in your state, what's the average cost of maintenance? That's going to be important, right? And then also, are you willing to pay a property manager, and will the profit absorb the cost for a property manager? Because if you can do those sorts of things, then it's not really your problem.
You know me, I'll ask the same questions all the time. What are your goals? Mm-hmm. Is your goal to own one property in either Rhode Island or Austin? Could you do something different or better with that money that you enjoyed a bit more? I mean, I'm all for buying real estate. I think it's the best place to put your money, but I also don't spend all my money on real estate. So I'd be a hypocrite to say that I think you should. But the other thing I would tell you is that, like, don't let anyone tell you that there's a such thing as passive income. Passive income is a BS concept. Like, passive income, if you keep an attitude that it is passive, it will go away. So, like, I don't think rental income on a house is passive. Is it like osmotic? Yeah, I mean, it kind of comes through, but it has to go through a process. But you still have to put effort into it. You still have to get renters and manage maintenance, and that's a lot of work. So if you do it one time, with one house, that's one thing. But if your goal is to only own one house, that's cool. But if your goal is to own 5 or 10 houses, and you think, oh, that's going to be passive, no. Now all of a sudden you own a business.
Yeah, it's a job.
The place is going.
Yeah, managing properties is not fun. It's not easy. So going back to Ian's point, are you going to have somebody manage it? Are you going to manage it? Are you going to spend the time doing it? Because again, if you're managing it, you are going to be the one talking to that tenant, right? It's not the management company. It's easy to yell at the management company for whatever the tenant does. But when you're the one having to talk to the tenant, it's a totally different conversation. So that's something as well you should look at. But yeah, having money in your pocket sounds so great, but you know, there's so many things going on crazy in the world that might be better to have it parked into something where it's, you know, gaining some sort of equity. But at the end of the day, everybody's saying the market's going to crash. It's going to crash. So I think that's why another reason why people are so hesitant and why this topic is so important is because there's so many people that are getting scared about it, right? And making a big deal out of it, which it's not a little deal, but I feel like they're making a bigger deal out of it than it needs to be just for clicks. And yes, again, we're talking about the subject, but we're not saying here, hey, this is going to crash the market. We're trying to be a little more level-headed than most people. Anyway.
But if you can't find a way to spend couple $100,000, I'm sure one of the three of us would be able to step in and help with that. I can spend money pretty easily.
I hear Lambos are holding their value right now, right?
Lambos are. So are NFTs.
Well, what's the cost of maintenance, annual maintenance on a Lambo, Kevin?
I think a Lamborghini is like a little over like $1.50 per mile for a Gallardo.
Jeez.
A Ferrari's like $3 per mile.
Ferrari, there you go. Those are the ones.
They kind of range between those numbers and amongst those numbers depending on what you want. But if you owned a Lamborghini, prices are up like and most exotics anyway, but Lamborghinis for sure up like 15-20% in the last 6 months.
Yeah. So Dennis D says, so if the eviction is legit and it's based on actual tenant inability to pay, that would create a surplus of rental inventory on the market, wouldn't it? How could rents how much could rents drop by? That's a really great, Adam's response here is a great response. Thank you, Adam. Let's remember real estate's local. What happens in Las Vegas is different from what's happening in Austin. What's your thoughts on that, Ian?
So we saw that Texas was 6%, right? So that's a pretty low number in the grand scheme of things. I can't guarantee, but I am pretty positive that there are a lot of investors that are waiting to see an opportunity where there is a vacant property where they can scoop up more doors. Or even people relocating from another state. I know a lot of people that were trying, couldn't make it happen. And if there is even a whiff of a potential, foreclosure or vacant property where they can submit an offer, I think we're gonna see that, as long as the offers aren't, ridiculous.
But what does that do to the rental market, though? If we see a flood of rental properties, people get evicted, right? And we're talking about affordability. Kevin said earlier that, things aren't as affordable as they were, right? If somebody is getting kicked out of a $2,000 a month rent, what do they afford after that? And is there something remotely close to that? It's going to be further out. So does that mean that we're going to see prices drop because there's a flood of inventory for rentals?
Yeah, that's such an interesting, and I guess that's why there's that question. I think I'm going to stick to what I believe Kevin was saying, where I just don't see it. I don't see it happening here. More people are going to end up moving further out, and where they can afford to live. It's kind of a rough situation, but that's the reality of it.
It takes time, I think, because people that move based on rentals tend to move quite often, right? So they're going to move maybe every 6 months or maybe every year, or definitely probably every 2 or 3 years. But I just think that I don't think that everything's going to happen all at once. I just really don't. I mean, it would be catastrophic if literally everything happened. All these homes hit the market the same day. If 10% of our entire rental inventory hit the market again in one day, what would that do? Would that drive prices down? Maybe for the short term, but there's a huge factor that you're not even considering is demand. A lot of our demand has softened right now, not because people aren't doing anything. It's not that they're not moving. They're waiting. They're just waiting to see what's going to happen next. So it's delayed demand. It's not evaporated demand, right?
So look at Mark's question. I think that's kind of where all of us were going. That one, that's a good one. But the next one down under LM.
This one? Which one?
Yeah.
All right. Any thoughts on whether the evictions will cause people to migrate to less expensive states or locations? That's actually, wow. That was going to be my response to this. So thanks, Mark. I appreciate you throwing that in there. Is that here's the actual amount of inventory on the rental inventory right now. Now, this isn't apartments. This is just homes. In fact, this is duplexes, everything. We're talking about 1,582 listings right now. I was working with a large company reloading people, and the last time I spoke with them, a lot of the people that they had that were going to be buying homes are now looking towards rentals, and they're even having a harder time finding rentals in Austin. So, Adam said it eloquently earlier that, it depends on the city and the state, but 6%, if we had 6% more to, 1,582, that's not a ton of lease listings. And that's not saying that some of them aren't going to go to the MLS. So 100% of that 6%, are they actually going to go to the MLS and be rented again? Are they going to get sold? What happens with them? So I think, that we will see prices probably level a little bit, but I mean, prices still haven't caught up with prices. I mean, rental prices have not caught up with sale prices yet, because I know I'm looking for rental property right now, and I cannot find anything that actually makes sense. I'm finding, $450K with renting $2,500 a month, but 25% down, really only nets me like $200. Like that doesn't sound like a good investment to me to only make $200 a month. I know we've talked about everybody's strategies are different, but I'd rather have like $600 or $700 a month cash flow because I know taxes are going to go up, and I'm going to have maybe a month where I don't rent to somebody because we're changing out renters or whatever that, or maybe somebody gets evicted. So, it's really hard to actually find a good solid rental right now.
Yeah, I mean, from that cash flow standpoint, I mean, I'm glad that you mentioned it because I definitely see the rental side differently. I don't want to get off too much of a tangent in this, whether it makes money or not. I actually would be okay with the rental losing money, to be quite honest with you, because if I had to come out of pocket an extra $2,000 a year or whatever, I think it's a small price to pay to go towards the equity that's being built in the asset 20 or 30 years from now. But
Yep.
I mean, we can't be silly and think that everything's going to happen to infinity, right?
Yeah.
30 years ago, the market was completely different than it is today. So let's think 10, 20, or 30 years from down the road, what is going to happen? I believe potentially, like we've told before, that there will be a shift towards more people being forced to rent. I don't think that the urbanization of our country is going to slow down. I think we're continuing to move towards urbanization. Like it's just happening right now. People are migrating out of the small cities and more towards city centers because there's more to do. Millennial lifestyle, they want that. They want the active lifestyle, but they want to be around people and buy a $15 avocado toast and $7 lattes because that's kind of going right here in Austin right now. But
yeah, Ian's a huge fan of avocado toast.
I think it'll. I mean, you've heard the anecdote that millennials are having a hard time buying homes anyway, right? So why? I'm just thinking from my own standpoint, like why wouldn't you? Would you rather live in a place that you enjoy your lifestyle? It's maybe a little simpler, and you don't own your home, and you're okay with that because now you've just adjusted to a smaller lifestyle. Think about it. What New York City in the 1980s? Did anyone actually own their place? You have to be like super wealthy to own. You couldn't be just a normal Joe and own a flat in New York City in 1980s. You probably just rented it from somebody. So I think if you're investing in real estate, I still think now the next foreseeable future is the time to be buying your investment properties here in Austin, because I do believe at some point the demand for people being here will be still very strong, and they just won't be able to afford the housing prices, but they'll still want to be here. So rentals will be very, very strong demand as well. That's just how I see it.
Agreed.
Let's say, so Kevin, let's say this. Let's say that 6% of these evictions happen in the next month, right? Boom. They all hit. What happened? And let's say all 6% of those, just a hypothetical question, all 6% of those go, you know what? F it. I'm putting this house on the market. Right?
Yeah.
And right now we're at 0.9 or right at 1 month inventory. And then more people are getting ready to sell their homes anyway. Right. And then we have people coming off forbearance that might be selling their homes. What do you think that would actually do to our market in Austin as far as pricing goes? Because that also affects, like, if you're investing, does that mean prices start coming down on homes too?
Maybe, probably a little bit if it all hit at one time. But again, I think it takes weeks for that to kind of flesh itself out. I think demand and supply don't ebb and flow daily or weekly, right? It's like a waving trend, like it's coming through, and then demand might pick up 1 week, but then the inventory didn't appreciably increase, and vice versa. One weekend you get 600 new homes, but then everybody's on the boat all weekend long, right? So weekend to weekend, I think it's going to fluctuate. But yeah, potentially, I guess the home prices could not be crazy high during that time and settle a little bit. But Ian is right. Ian even said this, like it'll get absorbed back up really fast when it's the new norm. And once that 6% of homes gets absorbed into the market, then we're back in the same position that we were before. But I do argue, though, because here's what people are saying. This is the straw man argument why this is catastrophic. They're thinking that the people that own these places are underwater.
Yes.
And that they can't make the payments on the mortgage. Therefore, okay, I get it. If you don't make the payments on the mortgage, you're going to go in. But you have an option if you're getting to that point where you don't have a renter and you say, okay, let's say that your renter gets evicted. Not all those people are going to going to put the house on the market. They're going to try to find another renter first,
Right.
probably. And if they can't find another renter for 3 months while they're not making their payments, then maybe they'll start going into forbearance. But then even then, before it goes into foreclosure, those people, someone will buy that house. And probably that person has a lot of equity. So again, I don't understand any fear mongering around this topic whatsoever. I think it's very normal. I think the worst case scenario isn't even really that bad for our market. Now it could be bad for other markets, but I think ours is not going to be affected much at all.
Oh. Yeah.
Sorry, I was long-winded. I'm
Good. I pulled up a graphic too. I want to talk about
I wanted to hear your thoughts on that as well, Ian. But here you go. You can have your graphic.
Well, the reason why I pulled this up is because when you were looking at the rent numbers, I was thinking, okay, well, how many of these would actually be comparable to people actually buying houses? So these are all 3-2 or more, 3-bedroom, 2-bath or more. So I removed all condos, townhomes, things like that, just single families. So now it drops the number to 436 available single family to rent today. Within, and this is really important, within 15 miles of downtown Austin.
I mean, my rental listings get stupid amounts of traffic. I get a call every day. One of the listings I have is a kind of a challenge. It's a little challenging. I mean, it's already at a higher price point. It's $6,000, $5,800 a month. I still get a call every day on that listing. Every single day on a $5,800 a month listing.
Look, 1,000 square feet. This is the lowest priced one. 1,000 square feet, $1,600.
Not including apartments, of course.
No. But it is a 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, single family living.
Single family, yeah.
Space.
Mm-hmm.
Not including apartments, of course.
Mm-hmm. That's actually really cheap. Apartments are crazy. You know how much like a 3-bedroom apartment is here right now? It's like $2,500 a month.
Yeah,
nuts. 2 bedrooms are like $2,000.
Well, what size for that?
Well, the 2 bedrooms are still only like 1,300 square feet.
That's price per month, Dinosaur D. He said, "Is that price per week?" Which is pretty funny.
MLS does not track the number of offers we have on properties, by the way. So there's a big amount of data.
That's important too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to look. I thought the mortgage moratorium got extended. Did it not? Because I know it.
There you go.
I know it ended, but I thought states had the ability to continue with the moratorium.
They do. States supersede federal for the moratorium. I believe that's how it works.
Well, I'm talking about the foreclosure moratorium.
Don't know.
So, yeah.
Well, no, then it's a federal loan, right?
Yeah. I know it ended, but who did a really good video on this was Jason Walter. He did a very good video about it. It ended, yet Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are still federally backed, but so there was still, forget how he said it, but you could still because they were still U.S. backed, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, you could still continue doing forbearance. So I'll have to look that up because I know there's a lot of people have speculated on that as well, but I don't think that it's actually fully ended. Sorry. Courts. Sorry, I was reading. This is what I was looking at. Was Mark's comment. Courts ruled CDC eviction ban was illegal, but what's the status of mortgage moratorium? I'm pretty sure it's been extended, or the governing body behind Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac are still insuring those loans. So, all right, let's see. Adam thinks that America is going to be a renter nation, just like Europe. Happy. If BlackRock's buying up everything, so could be. What was your conspiracy theory about BlackRock, Kevin? You always have good ones.
Oh, one of the many. I mean, I'm trying to articulate how that one would be put.
What about this one, Jeremy? Any thoughts on California implementing UBI and how that would increase rent value on property? Well, in California, I'm sure that don't they already have like a cap on what you can rent on some properties, or some cities have like rental caps and stuff like that. I don't know. California is one of those crazy places. I had to leave. Sorry.
I'm not sure. I mean, we can argue about UBI all you want to, but I don't want to get political on it. I just don't see that $1,000 a month is going to make that big of a difference for most people.
It's true.
If you make more money, do you spend more money?
Hell yes, you do.
All right.
You can spend $1,000 in 5 seconds.
I know. I'm just. It makes me agree with Adam that if there was a UBI and people are already doing well, the problem is there are a lot of people that aren't doing well. That's why they're leaving. But if there were people doing well and they're getting an extra $1,000 rent increases, like Kevin said, if they like where they are and they love their lifestyle and they refuse to let it go, they'll pay the extra difference.
I mean, UBI
but how many are leaving? Mass exodus.
UBI is like mathematics almost, like, or physics. Like everything works in a vacuum. At the moment you implement, external forces into it, it cannot possibly work that way. If it is going to work, it has to work in conjunction with other socialist or communist type behaviors, meaning the government's going to provide everything that you could possibly need. So if California is going to provide UBI and income, then they probably need to consider offering public housing as well, or actually making affordable healthcare. I'm not ashamed to tell you, I spend well over, I mean, most people do thousands of dollars a month on healthcare right now. Thousands.
Oh, I do too.
Thousands of dollars.
Just on healthcare. Yeah.
I was mad at the bill because I've never broken anything and I never go to the doctor. I'm so angry, but I understand because there are a lot of people hit.
So, I mean, and again, I'm not saying I'm for or against or anything. I'm against, obviously, communism, socialism, obviously. But, I just think that there's these type of factors when we bring these things up. We can't assume in any way, shape, or form that we know how it's going to affect our economy because it's such a small piece and the concept is in a vacuum. It only works in the vacuum. Once you expose it to something else, it doesn't work anymore. Not the way it's intended to, at least. I mean, it's good for our economy. UBI is good for our economy, right? Because then they're going to pump that into Robinhood and TVs, right? And bars.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to, be the host and read comments. And that's not what I wanted to shoot. Let's switch gears for a minute here. Before we do that, Ian needs a Tesla bike and with collision avoidance. That's for sure.
Share my screen. I've got this on order, Dinosaur D.
Is it what is that?
It's an electric motorcycle. Look at this thing. It's sexy.
Is it big for? I don't know what MMT is. UBI is big for MMT. Is that? Okay.
Too many acronyms.
Yeah. So as of, let's say, I think yesterday, some of this passed. So some news information that I find very interesting. So the 87th Texas legislator talks appoints of Texas realtor leaders. So there's some things that are passed. So a lot of it was with HOA reforms. So one of the things, so I was going through this. So they passed HOA reform that the HOA information has to be online now. So if you want to find out information about your HOA, it has to be online. They limited the amount, how much HOAs could charge for the resale certificate to $350. So think about some of those that weren't charging $350 for their HOA. So when you're closing, you got to pay a HOA resale certificate. I mean, one of you has to pay it, and it goes to the HOA. It goes into their funds. It goes in for the management of, creating the documents. And they've limited that. So some of these big HOAs, that's going to hurt the bottom line for some of these bigger HOAs that were collecting more money. But there's a lot of interesting laws that were passed. Did you guys read about any of this stuff?
Hot take. I don't think an HOA should have a bottom line or be traded the way that they are.
Yeah. One of the other things is the HOA, and this is pertinent to my HOA, is that in Circle C, we had somebody that had bid on our doing the yard maintenance. It's like we're talking a multi-million-dollar contract. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe it was like $400,000 a year. I don't know. Whatever because Circle C is a big HOA. But so what happened is somebody had partnership or whatever from the board with this landscaping company, and they did the contract, and they automatically just renewed the contract without like going out for bids for the next year. We're talking is a very, very expensive bid. And so a lot of people are like, whoa, hold on. Are we going to bid out for this? No, we've got it. And so now on landscaping over $50,000, you have to rebid out every year. And that was part of one of these things. So HOAs sometimes have too much power, and sometimes HOAs, I mean, if you're on an HOA, it can be a lot of work. So, and a lot of thankless work.
I don't think people that have not been in one or coming from other states pay close attention to that when they're relocating here. That's a big one.
Yeah. So I just wanted to see if you all had kind of heard some of this. Eminent domain reform, expand appraisal options. It's interesting. I have to read into that. So
I like that they have to expose the fees, the transfer fees. I remember one of the first houses I sold in Black Hawk years ago, and I was like, Pflugerville. And then I saw the HOA transfer fee was like $860. Yeah, I was like, whoa, what just happened?
That's a racket, bro.
Uh-huh. And you have to call 3 people to get the answer. Otherwise, you're just writing a blind contract saying, I mean, I guess my buyers will pay it because that's the market we're in.
But think about some of the cool things that have changed even since in the last couple of years. Like we were until just very recently required to hand 2 paper checks to 2 different entities.
Oh yeah, that's ridiculous. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like take a picture of these checks, submit it with the offer. Like I don't even have a checkbook anymore. Like I had one for a while and now it's just completely gone. And so I'm not going to go do that anymore. Yeah. But think about it. Like, there's still a lot of things like HOA transfer documents. Why can't they dump the HOA CCRs on a website with a Google Drive link and then that's done? Like you have this CCR documents. You don't have to wait 21 days and pay $500 for it.
Because how will they charge you?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's just a racket.
Right?
Yeah, and
you can BitTorrent it. That's what you do. You start torrenting all the HOA packets.
Well, Belterra.
You didn't hear that here.
The Belterra HOA transitioned to a UK-based investment firm like 3 years ago. So they own the Belterra HOA.
Yeah, I've found it interesting that like Goodwin Management Company, they do management for all these HOAs.
Yes,
and to see that there's so much, there's really a business in running HOAs or being the property management or the manager for. So I didn't realize, and I got into real estate and had to figure that out. Actually, I bought my first Texas house and kind of had to figure all that out. But here's some of the stuff they have: HOA reform, increasing broadband access, removing. Am I still on the screen? No, I'm not.
Are we talking Starlink? No. Are we talking Starlink?
No. Increasing broadband access, removing discriminatory covenants from real estate deeds. That's an interesting one. Flood disclosure for tenants, condo association transparency, and property tax transparency. And I think that is the biggest one on all of this, that I'd love to see more transparency on property taxes, because man, I gotta read up on that one, because
both new builds and your sites like Zillow and Realtor, they won't tell you. You have to do your research to find that. So I think that'll be interesting to see how they handle the change.
Well, did you see I don't know if you saw the video I put out Tuesday. So real quick, LGI bought out Buffington Homes and then terminated a bunch of contracts.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I lost my train of thought. Jesus. What were we talking about?
Originally, we were talking about HOAs, and then you went to cancel.
Oh, yeah. All right. Here's
property taxes with the builders.
Yeah. So my video that I put on Tuesday, I broke down LGI. So LGI bought up Buffington, right? Terminated all these contracts. But LGI on their website goes out and says, okay, if you buy this house, here's the starting price on this house, but here's what your mortgage would be, right? So it's, a 285 house. And then you go down to the very bottom and it's got those little asterisks and it says, oh, this is based on you putting 3.5% down. So I broke down in the video the mortgage calculator on what that actually was. And it was $2,000 a month.
Yep.
And that was because I added in the HOA, the taxes, and the insurance. On the website, it says $1,300 a month. So it's totally misleading to any buyer. And so that's why I think it's really important for all these disclosures to be out for a consumer, because the thing that I hate the most, and real estate's tough because a lot of moving parts, but when things don't get disclosed from a seller to a buyer, and you 2 months later I get a phone call from a buyer and like, hey, this wasn't disclosed, we found this, like it's frustrating all the way around, because then you got to spend time going back and helping somebody and figuring it out, and then that's where lawsuits happen. And it was all because the seller didn't disclose things, or the disclosure of taxes wasn't done the right way, or any of those things. And then you have like companies like LGI just, hey, look, this is what your mortgage is going to be, and it's not even close.
And they have all those signs, 0 down and all this, $800 mortgage payment.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Where? That is not true. Lying to everybody. It's just to get you in the door.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't go without representation. Doesn't have to be 3 of us, but gosh, somebody. Please.
Here we go. That's a good one. Brother Ted, specific cue about luxury downtown high rises. How do y'all feel about buying that category of property right now? Factors, Proposition B, enforcing progress, supply demand of high-rise buildings and units. It's a good question. I like that one.
I mean, absorption is not as high. I mean, on downtown condos, and there are a lot of new buildings that are in process finishing and coming up. But are you buying this as an investment property or a property to live in? That's the big difference.
Yeah.
Like from an investment property, if you're going to sink $1 million into a 2-bedroom downtown, you remember your HOA is probably going to be
$3,000 a month.
No, it's about 70 to 80 cents per square foot per month for the HOA. So you're probably going to pay $1,000 a month probably for an HOA.
$1,300 is what I saw for a recent one.
So I mean, you're gonna have to rent it out, and you can cover rent. Like I said, some buildings 70 rainy. I saw the small units doing as much as $6 a square foot. The large units are doing $4 a square foot for rental, which is insane.
I think the thing you have to worry about, and Brother Ted, I would heavily look at when you are buying anything luxury is, all right, what your rent is going to be on that. And then what are the taxes and what could the taxes be? Because that's the biggest thing, especially with luxury properties, is that the taxes are always much higher than they end up. Like what they're advertised end up being higher once they readdress them. So did you guys both leave? Okay. You're right there.
No,
because the property taxes every time will cut into your bottom dollar. And I've seen, $1.5 million homes listed and it shows 13,000 in taxes. I'm like, that's not right. It's got to be way higher than 13 grand in taxes. So what's a Starlink, Ian?
It's an aquarium. It is not an aquarium.
Is that an inside joke?
It is.
I think so. Assad back again. Hello. Is home insurance very high in Austin compared to other parts of the U.S.? Man, that should be a great question to have Paul Guerrero on. My Allstate guy.
No.
Well, so I mean, what natural disasters do we really have here? We don't have very many, right? Flooding is probably the biggest one, and there are a lot of flood zones to keep in mind. But overall, I don't think that's a very high percentage as long as you're sharp with where you're purchasing. Overall, your roof is your biggest, I think, one of your biggest costs of insurance claim for insurance claims. So
yeah,
it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's not. Good.
No, you're right.
But relative to other places in the United, I don't know what anybody else pays. Right? I know about HOAs. I get that a lot.
I hear people that move here. People that move here tell me that they think it's low relative, but I thought it was low when I moved here for market.
I think electric load is low, but I think water is high. So
water is high.
Water's high.
Gas is pretty moderate. Insurance is pretty cheap, I would think.
I think so. I think it's pretty cheap compared to a lot of other places that I've heard.
It did jump up significantly.
I mean, it's cheaper than Houston.
Yeah. Well, see when that when the hurricane hit Houston in the year that we went down there, Jeremy, like right after that, the insurance companies adjusted the rates for all of Texas.
Yeah.
So they had to do that to absorb the massive payouts that they had in that one specific area. So we all ended up doing that. I'm sure that we still are.
That's a good thing to pull up on bestplaces.net. I recommend this website to anybody, everybody. So bestplaces.net, you can actually look at cost of living. Now, I don't think this is 100%. I don't think it's 100% correct, but it gives you good metrics. It doesn't even have insurance on here. Look at that. Utilities.
I was going to say maybe it falls under utilities.
Just under USA average. Transportation, just under USA average. Or no, over miscellaneous, under. Let's see. What does it say for housing? Texas, 83%. Well, Austin. I got Austin. That was a mistake. Yeah. 109% of the U.S. average, 159% of the U.S. average for housing. And that was at 369. We know that Austin is now, well, depending on where you're living, the city of Austin's like 575. So that number's not 100% right. Anyway, good website if you want to look at political stuff too. People always ask me political stuff. There is a spot under here for all of that stuff. People stats, politics and voting, housing stats, all that stuff's in there if you want to look up your politics.
Love that very vague miscellaneous line too, whatever that means. It's like the artificial and natural flavors line.
That's your avocado toast. How much are you going to spend on avocado toast?
I'll tell you the best avocado toast I've had. I'm just
joking. Cafe.
Jeez, you guys.
Actually, probably Cenote.
I love it. Cenote is fantastic too.
The ONG breakfast at Cenote for me there is nothing else that even competes with that for $15.
Okay. I've been there once. It was very good.
Okay, let me tell you. It had Belgian waffles, bacon, sausage, French toast, scrambled eggs, and home fried potatoes for $15.
That's not bad at all. Ooh. I'll take that.
And it's good. It's not like terrible versions. Sorry.
Yeah. What's your assessment? Have you guys been driving around downtown? Your assessment of the homeless problem. I'm sorry. We'll say the homeless progress in downtown. The unhoused, whatever term people want to use.
I would say the easiest way to say this is, as I've been driving around, I see a few less congested areas, but I don't know what that means. Right? I don't know if that means there were relocations. I don't know if that means I don't know what that means. And it's not all areas. It's not obviously not cleaned up. It's not, but there are a few less congested areas as I drive through.
I think that was the thing that I had seen a lot of, is you have whole sections of, specific areas that were high density homeless living, unhoused tent living, whatever you want to call it. And I'm over here trying to be politically correct on a topic that's so hard to be politically correct on. But driving around today as well, I was like, I thought they were supposed to clean up everything already, and we weren't supposed to have any any tents, on sidewalks and places. And so it's still a thing. I wouldn't say it's gone. So it's still out there. I mean, any thoughts from you, Kevin? Or you just want to?
Yeah, no, I don't. Have they closed? Are they even going to clean up the stuff that's left behind, or can I actually go search for my stolen bicycle now?
No, that's gone.
It's gone forever.
Yeah,
because a lot of the stuff is still there. I don't actually notice from my people standpoint. I don't know. It feels to me very similar to what it did before the camps were set up, but the visual of the camps are kind of still there. But as far as the people out and about it, I think it's about the same as it was previously.
I read something earlier today talking about being a ban on even car camping, or that potentially impacting people that are in cars as well. And I remember seeing that in a few spots, like YMCAs and such downtown. There would be people that were parked there at night, and their cars are full, and that's where they were staying.
I'm gonna go sleep in Kevin's driveway.
You can sleep in my driveway. You know what I would do? If you're ever put in this position, spend the $35 and get a monthly membership to LA Fitness, because they have showers.
I had a buddy.
I actually see people that
did that. It was great.
Yeah, I see people doing it right now. The one down in South Lamar, and not necessarily like homeless people, but people that are nomadic.
His was Planet Fitness, because you can go to any of them. There were more of them.
Correct.
Do they have laundromat behind it too, so you can wash your clothes, or how's that work?
Well, Genuine
Well,
Joe's is
we're-
across the street.
A real OG would just wear them into the shower. You just wear them
And
into the
walk out.
shower, and then you
Go to the sauna.
just dry off afterwards.
I've
I've thought about this. Don't get me wrong.
So this is a good one, Jeremy. I've seen some projections that Austin metropolitan area will be the same size as Houston's metropolitan area in 2040. Any thoughts? Yeah. My thought is they better get going on I-35 and more transportation. I mean,
we're going to build a tunnel. It's going to be Starlink that builds a tunnel.
The problem with the transportation issue too is like I don't see more people going to go jump on trains and use trains as the best means to get around, especially when they're talking about having to drill underground when we're surrounded by limestone in Austin, which is so hard.
The tunnels aren't for the trains. The tunnels are for your own vehicle.
No, I'm not talking about Starlink or whatever you're talking about. I'm talking about they passed Prop A and Prop B.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I think Austin could definitely get to the size of Houston. The problem we're going to face is that Austin is not forward thinking enough, right, Kevin?
No, they're not at all. They bragged about it too.
They bragged about not being forward thinking enough, or that they were.
The city of Austin bragged for years previously that they weren't forward thinking because they said, we do not want to build the infrastructure because we do not want people coming here. And that's exactly what they got. And people are like, well, we're going to come anyway. They're like, okay, I guess we need to fix this problem now incrementally, fix a problem that's a solution for 10 years ago. Right.
I have a buddy who does, they own like several chunks of land around Austin. And basically what they do is a lot of this road work projects. Right. And they go and they bid out and they take a lot of the dirt out of these projects. So they do a lot of these big road projects and they go dump it on their land, and then they turn around and sell the dirt back to other projects. It's the most ingenious thing. I don't think those people will ever be out of business. In fact, I asked them, can I invest in your company? Because I know you're never going out of business in Austin. Well,
I went to that development meeting for the domain a few years back. And the authorities that were at that meeting said that the infrastructure for the city of Austin, I'm trying to say this the right way, so follow me. The infrastructure that we currently have for the city of Austin, generally speaking, is good for us to be at 2 million people in our current metro. And they said they won't consider anything outside of that until we get to that point. Then they'll start talking about major thoroughfare additions, not just upgrades, but like big solutions.
How long ago was that?
That's to 2 million.
How long ago was that?
2 summers.
Yeah. Okay. Because we exceeded that during the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at this. So back to my great place or bestplaces.net. Look at that. Population has grown 20% since 2020. That's Austin, Texas. That's not even the MSA. Let's look at Round Rock. Like, what's Round Rock? Go back. But yeah, just go to your point. So 2,000, is that just the city of Austin, or is
2 million city of Austin?
Just the city of Austin.
That was not including Cedar Park and everything else, because the city of Austin could care less about that, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah. There's no way the population in Round Rock is just 137,000.
No, this is old news.
But they're up 25% since 2020.
Well, it might be the actual specific Round Rock.
Look at addresses. That. Look at this though. Median price from this is probably pretty correct. 440.
Yeah.
Median age is 33.9.
Well, that's the median buying age, right? It's 33.
Yeah. Yes, it's 33. It's the median buying age. It's always has been 33 when you buy your first home. It's also how old Jesus was when he died.
Mm-hmm.
Cedar Park's 487, even higher. Population there. Cedar Park is up 56% since 2020.
What? I don't know about this data, bro.
I know. Unemployment's 5%. It sounds about right. Median age 35. Ooh. I wonder what your favorite place, Dripping Springs, is.
Dripping Vegas, baby.
Dripping Vegas. Say Dripping Springs. $6.95.
6,000. See, that's the thing is Dripping Springs Metro is actually like 50,000. That's why I don't believe this at all.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't even 6,000 people in the city limits of Dripping Springs. There's like less than 2,000. So this number is who knows what.
Yeah. 5.3% unemployment. 695 is pretty close. I mean, I'd say probably 750 would
median
be much
income.
better.
Median income is not 57.
Yeah, it's gotta be higher, and the median age is 38. I mean, that might be. I don't know.
Damn, son.
All right.
Boomers. 38-year-olds.
They only gave it 2 out of 5 stars.
I'm looking at the comfort index. Nobody wants to live there.
They only gave it 2 out of 5 stars, which is funny. Yeah, we're trying to keep people out is the whole point. What's up, Antone? Good to see you again. Been a long time, but Jeremy somehow has an even more punchable face now.
It's totally
oh, love that, man.
Antoine needs to come visit for sure.
Yeah, man. That's funny. Have you heard any jobs about SpaceX will bring to Austin? SpaceX is interesting. What have you heard on SpaceX?
I actually haven't heard anything on the SpaceX headquarters. I've heard more on Tesla, Boring Company, and the other jobs.
So I was talking to a guy earlier today who has worked at a lot of the different launch sites. He said that SpaceX has something like 4,000 acres, maybe 400, maybe 4,000 acres in Waco. They have a lot of land already up there. Yeah, and there are a bunch of other sites that are outside of Austin. They have offices that they were working on bringing here, but I don't know what that means for number of jobs.
Yeah, don't they make like the motors there, the rocket motors in Waco? Is that what they do there?
So.
Yeah.
I know they make parts.
We got some smart people there. I had a guy who's going to move and work for SpaceX. He was in charge of like getting all the machinery for the building, I guess. But he ended up moving to Dallas instead. So it's interesting that he didn't move here. I grew up in Austin. I left before the hordes moved in. Sorry. It was a beautiful city at the time and still is somewhat. Build the wall around Texas. All right.
That's a thought.
Yeah, we could do that, but then that would, yeah, we could. I don't know. SpaceX is yesterday's news, Adam, and the future of Austin is Disneyland. Yeah, so I put the clip.
Disneyland will employ more people than SpaceX, guaranteed.
Yeah,
right.
Well, it
was not. I mean, I don't know what the output for total salary is, but it'll employ more people.
Yeah, what's interesting about that? I put the short clip on that out, and a lot of people watched it, and a lot of people were mad. They're like, "Oh, don't bring Disney here. We already have Elon." I thought that was funny.
What does that have to do with Elon? Seriously. Don't bring Samsung here. We already have Apple. What? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Like, I'm trying to think of something more sensational. I'm not saying we started the Disney rumor, but if I wanted to start another rumor, what company would I say was coming here? So, like, if you even work down the list of the S&P 500, we've pretty much got all the top companies in the world that already have a headquarters here.
We have the
Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, the list just keeps going. Like, we have all these people already that are here. So
yeah, I'm trying to think of how else would we bring.
Maybe I'll build a life-size replica of the Eiffel Tower.
Is Exxon here in Austin?
Exxon
near here?
Probably not here. Houston, I would guess. Not much oil here.
I was just there.
I was just there too. D.R. Horton?
Yeah. So
are they open up to investors yet over there, Pioneer Hills?
They have not. D.R. Horton has not opened up to any investors in the Austin metro at all. And they're actually in a situation where all of their permitting has halted, so they can't give you any dates.
Really? D.R. Horton? They're still selling, though. I've seen.
No, they're selling. They're writing the contracts, but it's all TBD.
Yeah, my email is full of D.R. Horton. Hey, we're selling this. here's the bid process, or here's our inventory. I've seen both of those
Yep.
things come out. And I still like
getting,
the
and Pioneer Hills, I think, is the one that minimum you're looking at about 30,000 over minimum.
I like Pioneer Hills. I like the location of it. I think it's I mean, you can't buy it as an investment. I mean, if you're buying it as an investment, but if you're buying it as a future, like you're holding, yeah, I think Pioneer Hills is a great location. What's the tax rate there? It's lower, right?
It is. It's 2.54, and I was actually there to buy it as an investment.
Are you talking about Pioneer Hill,
Like for
Pioneer
my
Hill off
personal.
of Dessau? That Pioneer Hill
Yeah.
off of
No.
Dessau?
No. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. There's Pioneer Hills, Pioneer Crossing.
Behind Samsung?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Yeah.
No, I know. It's incredible. And you're getting them for less than 5.
Yes, please buy all the houses in the area, please.
I heard that Hermes is coming to Austin. They found a rich multi investor who's pushing their products hard. That's funny.
I'm gonna run the store. Actually, they've hired me
Yeah,
to run
that
the
would be a
store
bad
already.
idea. Aaron Zander says business expansion incentive program expires soon. A lot. So lots of companies are rushing to get here.
Explain that. What's the expansion incentive program? Is it monetary? Is it tax incentives? Employee benefits for bringing your operations here? What are we talking about?
Yeah, a lot of it's employee driven. You're getting money to bring. You're getting tax incentives to bring employees here.
I gotta go, Jeremy.
Yeah, I gotta go too.
Jeb. Sorry, guys. I gotta
All right,
go.
no
Thank
problem.
you so much. See you guys later.
Peace out, everybody.
Later.
All right, we're gonna just go because I'm pretty beat, man. It's been a long week.
All right, man. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, we'll see you. Bye.